And welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Team Creation Series. Today's suggestion came to us from Seth the Xenomon Official for what is the Pokemon team for the original Ben Tennyson, the OG Ben 10. Now, Ben 10, I love Ben 10 first. I did watch a lot of Ben 10 growing up, at least original series and Alien Force. After that, kind of fell off a bit, but I still stayed within the world, kind of figured out, saw the new aliens, all that. Ben 10 is the first time, if you've noticed the title, that I've actually had to do something very unique here, because the Omnitrix essentially gives him and gives me a giant playing field worth of ideas for Pokemon teams to go with. That's like, how do you choose the Pokemon team from that? And beyond that, there's not much I could really do beyond that for Ben when I really broke it down. Like, yeah, he's like sports, yeah, he's not the brightest or anything like that, but it comes down to the Omnitrix. Really, it does. So I'm like, how the hell would I be able to choose a team? And so this is the first time that it won't be the last time I do the same character's Pokemon team. What essentially I decided to do is take six Mon from the original Omnitrix line, from the original series, make a team, and then next time I do Ben, which I'll just come around to do him another point in time, do another 6, and then do another 6, and then we'll move on to Alien Force, and then Omniverse, and all that, and until we basically go through all the aliens that have more or less shown up on Ben 10's, in Ben 10's Omnitrix. And luckily, when I did the math, and I should actually, Ben 10 aliens real quick, I should actually double check that really quickly. Let's see, alien names, or aliens, there you go, Ben 10 aliens. I believe there is like almost perfectly speaking, 18 aliens within the original series. Let's see here. If I can remember it all, let me get a list of Ben 10 Omnitrix aliens. Hold on. Omnitrix, because there's the original 10, obviously. There's the original 10, and then later on in the original series, he gained a fair amount of aliens. Obviously, Cannibal, Wildvine, Upchuck, Ben Wolf, Mummy, and Victor. Way Big, Eye Guy. So if I did the math right, and I might not have done the math right, by the way. I might not have done the math right, but still. If I'd done the math right, I think there's actually like 18-esque aliens in the original series. So that's 3 different teams for the original Ben. And then obviously Alien Force and Ultimate Alien came along, giving us another 10, plus all the extra ones he theoretically encountered. So there's a lot of aliens to go over in that. And again, I'll have to look through it all, but yeah, and by the way, I'm not counting like him showing up again like Buzzwole or Buzzshock, I should say, from Ben 10,000. Ben 10,000 didn't have, or our Ben didn't have that at that point. That was a different Ben. But still, ultimately, I'll have to do the math on the amount of, because there's a lot of aliens, and we don't even see all the aliens, not even close in the original Omnitrix or the Omnitrix in general, because there's over 1 million of them. Regardless, the way I decided to choose initial 6 and how I'll be going for it is very simple. I'm doing it by order of appearance. So Ben's initial, the first the first alien that appeared was Heat Blast, and that already posed a little bit of a tricky. Only one of these was really difficult for me to actually figure out. Heat Blast wasn't so much as difficult as me wondering which Mon I use, because from a design standpoint, Ceruledge is probably the closest physical representation to Heat Blast in terms of like a humanoid Mon. But Heat Blast is constantly on fire, and I wanted a Mon that is constantly on fire. So I went with Magmar. There we go, Magmar. Now, admittedly, you might be asking, why not go with Magmortar? Well, the real honest answer to that is simply design again. Magmar is constantly on fire, so there's that. But beyond that, it still has hands. And Heat Blast has hands. Magmortar doesn't. At least not hands. I believe maybe, if I'm not mistaken, I think its hands can retract. And that's where the cannons come from. But yeah, I preferred Magmar over Magmortar, particularly from the standpoint of it being like the early stages of the Omnitrix. Maybe if you wanted to go like Ultimate Heat Blast or something like that, then you could go Magmortar. But ultimately, I stuck with Magmar here. Now, I'm going to save Wild Mutt for last. Now, there's a big reason for that, but we'll get to that. After Wild Mutt actually came Diamond Head. Now, Diamond Head also proved to be a little problematic, because the one that truly stands out to me for that is actually the one I chose. Gigalith. It's got the crystals coming out of the rock body, and there you go. The problem, admittedly, is Gigalith actually works a lot better, especially when you look at the coloring, for Chromastone. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to save it for when I do Alien Force, and I'll do Chromastone, and I'll use Gigalith. But the problem is, beyond Gigalith, the only Pokemon that even come close to representing actual gemstones are the Carbink and Diancie line. That's it. Like, we don't have an actual Ruby Pokemon, an Emerald Pokemon. We got Pokemon that represent them for their respective games, but they're not, they don't actually have gemstones in them. They're not rock types. And so when it came down to minerals, I'm like, do I use Carbink? It's the same color as Diamond Head, but it's certainly not going to represent Diamond Head very well. Do I use Diancie? I don't think Diancie works in this vein either. And so, yeah, ultimately, I honestly just remember what I forgot to do here. But I'll still manage to do it. I'm just going to have to do it on the fly. But so I decided to kind of cheat here and use Gigalith for both Chromastone and Diamond Head, because in Alien Force, or Ultimate Alien 1 and 2, Diamond Head actually did get reborn out of Chromastone. So I do think that worked ultimately, and I allowed it as kind of a cheat. After that, the next mon that showed up, or the next alien that showed up, was Accelerate, the super speed lizard, which luckily we have Cyclizar for that. In fact, Cyclizar actually has a relatively close design, by Pokemon standards, to Accelerate. It's got the pointed head like a bicycle helmet. It's based off a bicycle, so it's got built-in wheels. Maybe not on its feet, but it's got built-in wheels. It's not as thin as Accelerate, but Accelerate is still but it's still thin enough. And it's got a base 121 speed stat. So, no, ultimately, it's still pretty solid in terms of its overall level of strength, and its similarity to Accelerate. So I went with Cyclizar there, no problem. And then came, obviously, Forearms. And obviously, when you're talking about Forearms, it's got to be a Machamp. There's no other Pokemon that represents Forearms better than Machamp, because it has 4 arms. And so, Machamp was just the clear-cut winner here to be Forearms. But beyond that, there was still two other ones. One is Gray Matter. Now, Gray Matter proved to be a little trickier, just due to the fact that it's a tiny, tiny alien. So I knew I needed a Pokemon that was on the smaller side, but a Pokemon like Gimmighoul or Flabébé wouldn't really work because they're not psychic types. I knew I needed a psychic type because they're hyper intelligent. And so, usually, you can have other intelligent Pokemon, sure, but psychic types are the super smart ones. And that's what Gray Matter's motif is. It's super smart. I decided to sell on Elgyem, because it is based off an alien Gray. It's not as small as Gray Matter, but it is tiny, and being a psychic type and an actual alien, I think lends itself out really well here. But now we get to the last one. This was, by and large, the most difficult one I had to deal with. Wild Mutt. And then I'm going to do something I don't normally do here. If we actually... hold on one second. There we go. If we actually look at Wild Mutt here, there is nothing in Pokemon that really strongly resembles this thing. Now, I did finally choose a Mon, mind you, but still, there's nothing in Pokemon that really looks like this thing and doesn't share and let alone share the same traits, because Wildmutt is blind. It has super extrasensory abilities with the gill slits you see there. So there's no Pokemon in Pokemon right now that really is a close representation of this thing. And especially because its design is just very weird. It's kind of got like a hunched over shape to its back and body. It has no eyes. It's got massive lower teeth. It sees what it senses, so it's blind. But its arms are also almost gorilla-like, so it's able to grab as well as run and climb. It is just a very, I mean, it's a unique design, to say the least. So I struggled hard on Wildmutt. That was the real difficult one. Ultimately, though, I settled on one that I had not used yet before in this series, Ursaluna. Now, this really comes down mostly to I'm going to get Ursaluna over Machamp here, there we go, to a design kind of thing here. Because Ursaluna is predominantly a four-legged creature, but as we saw with the Blood Moon form, it can go up on 2 legs. Now, it's still predominantly a four-legged creature here, but it's like a bear. It can still get up on its hind legs and attack. I feel like it has the closest body type that I could find to Wildmutt, where it's got a bit of a hunch in its back. Its body's, it's very bulky and top-heavy. And Ursalunas, by the way, are very powerful. Like, seriously, I caught my Blood Moon one in Scarlet and Violet DLC, but I also caught one on my main team for Legends Arceus, and that thing put in work. That thing is a beast. So I felt like it was the best I could do, because the only other options really were like maybe see like a Mighty Anna, because it's kind of doggish, but it's got a dark type edge. And even that wasn't very, and it's got heightened senses, but it really wasn't that good. So it really didn't help the case. It really didn't give me many options, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Still, the question, as always, is how balanced is this team? And the newest question that I admit I forgot to write down before I did this video. I'm pre-recording this video for Sunday. Is what region would this team do the best in? Now, to answer the first question, and by the way, I'm going to treat the Magby, I'm going to treat like his first Mon, like his first alien, as his starter, and then just go down the line. So he would get the Teddy Ursa, which would turn into the Ursaring, and then turn into Ursaluna, so forth and so on. First off, how balanced is this team? Actually, it's very balanced. There's only 3 types that really give this team a problem, and it's not even the majority of the team. It's a half-half split. So 3 of these Mon are weak to water types. That's just the problem that Magmar, Gigalith, and Ursaluna both share. They can't get over that. But Ursaluna at least has a dual typing and is a fully evolved Mon, same with Gigalith, that it could probably take at least some hits. Then you have, then the only other weakness you have here is fighting. Fighting, sadly, is shared again with both Ursaluna, Cyclar, even though Dragon is not weak to fighting, Normal is, and Dragon doesn't actually resist fighting, so that would still be a problem for the Cyclozar. And the Gigalith, again, it's just the way it played out. Now, unfortunately, that does mean that 2 of these weaknesses do translate to 2 of these Pokemon. But apart from that, most of these Mon don't share more than, like, say, 2 of the same weaknesses. For example, Rock is only shared with, Gigalith is weak to grass, rock, and water. Grass is only shared by Gigalith and Ursaluna, so there was that. Heck, even Cyclozar doesn't share many extra weaknesses beyond Fairy with Machamp. So, yeah, except for some shared weaknesses, and that's the problem. You're always going to have a team that's going to have some shared weaknesses. This is actually a fairly balanced team. But if I were to quickly go over these teams real quick, or this team, and figure out what region it would do the best in, starting with Magby as the starter, as that was the first alien that Ben had. And even if I'm being nice and saying he has a Magmar, the Magby just evolves early, because I believe Magbys, at what level do they evolve at? Yeah, let me first ask the question: can I get away with it giving him the Magmar early? Let's see here. So Magbys evolve at, let's see. Oh, how does Magby evolve? It evolves by Magmar starting at level 30. Okay, yeah, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. Yeah, no, he's got to have a Magby at least until the 4th gym. So the Magby starts out, which means Ben's already screwed because it's a Rock-type gym. Assuming, because you can still beat the Rock-type gym with a Charmander, so assuming that he can get past there and then gains the Teddy Ursa, and then you're evolved up to the point where you're going to fight Misty, at least at the same level. And let's see here, Teddy Ursa evolution. Teddy Ursa is evolved at level, at level 30 as well, so you're going to be stuck with that. The Teddy Ursa and the Magby are still going to be problematic because you got to deal with Misty's water types. If by some miracle after that you get past Misty, you still then got to deal with Lieutenant Surge, who, frankly, is, and at that point you are going to get a Gigalith and a Boulder, but Lightning, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Ben could get through Kanto. I really don't think he could. Now, let me put it this way. If by some miracle he can get through those first 3 gyms, and those first 2 gyms are going to be nightmarish for him. They're going to be hell, because that Magby stats just suck right now. Then it's actually going to be a relatively clean sweep. Because at that point he will have access to either a high-level Magby or his Magmar, which can just kind of go through a lot of it. Plus, he's going to have a Dragon Normal type, which will be able to neg a lot of the grass moves. And it has Shed Tail, so there's that as well. Then, after that, you'd be dealing with Koga. And Koga, at that point, you have Machamp on team. At that point, you should be able to handle them. You'll be able to have most of your Mon fully evolved at that point, except for Magmar, obviously, and then LGM. Sabrina's not going to be easy, but you're still going to be able to manage. Blaine shouldn't be that difficult, and honestly, Giovanni shouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, it's really getting past those first 3 gyms, and I don't know if you could do it with this team, at least in the order that I set it up. That being said, what about Johto? Johto is easier for him to get through by a long margin, because he's going to get, like I said, he's going to have the Magby, which should be able to handle the flying type gym. You're going to get Teddy Ursa, which along with the Magby should be able to handle Bugsy. At that point, you'll have Roggenrola, which should be able Roggenrola or Boulder, which should be able to help out and deal with Milk Tank, although you'll still have to get through that on your own. And at that point, then, Morty shouldn't be a big issue. You shouldn't, because once you get the Boulder, you can immediately just trade and get a Gigalith, so you'll get those up stats. Then Chuck would be a little problematic, because you wouldn't have your Illigium at that point, but you will have a Machamp of your own, which along with Magmar and Ursaluna should be able to take down the Steelix. You shouldn't have too much trouble with Price. Honestly, your only big issue is going to be with Claire. What am I talking about? Claire. And yeah, that's not a huge problem, but you don't, because you still have Tanky Mon on the team, but Gigalith isn't going to be able to stand up to the water type moves that, say, the Dragonair and the Gyarados have, along with Magmar. But, Cyclozar being a Dragon type will certainly help. Again, Ursaluna, I'd actually say Ursaluna and Machamp are your 2 powerhouses on this team. Gigalith is strong, but those 2 would wreck shop with Gigalith. And then would you be able to get through the Elite 4? Because the first one is the Psychic type leader. I always forget that. Which is only really going to be hurting your Machamp, really. Then you got to deal with Koga, who none of these Mon actually have a specific weakness to. Then you got to deal with Bruno again. And then you got to deal with the Dark type trainer. And honestly, most of these guys are probably going to be okay. They're probably going to be able to deal with it all right. Honestly, Bruno's going to be your toughest opponent and Lance. I think, Bruno's going to be tough because half this team gets cleaved by fighting types. So, I think it's possible. You have an easier time in Johto, no doubt about it. It's still not a guarantee. Hoenn, again, assuming you can get past Roxanne, and then assuming that you can get past Brawly. Assuming you can get past Brawly, which, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can beat Hoenn with this team in the order that you're getting these Mon in. Because, like with ironically, it's almost exactly the same with the issue with Kanto, except that you're replacing a water type gym with a fighting type gym. And that's actually worse, and that's almost as bad, if not worse, because you have a rock type to deal with. You're still dealing with the same mod, basically. And if anything, it's actually worse because your Teddiursa is weak to fighting types. So, and then Watson's got 3 electric steel types, which admittedly you still don't have Ursaluna at this point because you still aren't at that level yet. So, if you could get past Watson, and that's a big if here, could you beat Flannery? Honestly, that's still debatable because her team, I believe, is in the low 20s at that point, or high 20s. So, yeah, I'll be honest. So that means you still don't have Ursaluna. If you had Ursaluna on either of those teams, I'd say the answer is probably yes, because the ground type would come in clutch. The only thing you really have at your side there is Gigalith. And Gigalith can put in a lot of work, but it can't put enough work in. I just don't think so. And then you're still got to deal with Slacking and I'm going to be honest. And then you got to deal with a flying type Jin with I'm forgetting her name. But point being, yeah, I actually don't think you can. And then you got to deal with the final gym leader as a water type gym leader. I'm going to be honest. You could not beat Hoenn with this team. I don't think you could beat Hoenn with this team. And again, still dealing with the same issue. Rourke's a rock type leader. Then you're dealing with a grass type leader, which if you're at the same level as her, which you should be roughly, that's how we're dealing with this. Yeah, Gardenia, she isn't unbeatable. In fact, you should be able to handle her. The problem actually comes in with the third gym, and it doesn't matter if you're doing Platinum or if you're doing just Diamond or Pearl, because it's either a Ghost type gym, which means your normal type moves, which is mostly all you'd have with Ursaring at this point, or Ursaluna, is going to mean very little. So that means you're stuck with rock and fighting type moves, or fire type moves, or whatever other moves they have. The only upside is that it's going to be immune to any ghost type moves they have. But if you're then dealing with the other one, the fighting type gym, yeah, fighting's going to be weak. Over half your team at this point is weak to fighting before you even get to Crash or Wake. And Crash or Wake has an advantage against half your team, because at that point you should be able to have Ursaluna. So, yeah, and that's assuming then you can get past them, go dealing with the fifth gym leader at that point, who would either be, I believe, the fighting type gym leader or Crash or Wake. I can't remember how it exactly plays out in Pearl or Platinum. And then you still got to deal with the steel type gym leader and the ice type gym leader, which the only mon you have on your team that can deal with ice types or steel types are Ursaluna and Magmar for that, or Magmar, Gigalith, and Machamp. And that should get you past the ice types. Ironically, Wagner isn't that hard with this team. It shouldn't be that hard. But then you still got to deal with the rest of the Elite Four. One's got bugs, which you only got one mon on the team, 2 mons technically, Gigalith and Magmar, who are strong to bugs, and one of them isn't fully evolved. You got a Psychic type gym leader, which this team's really not equipped to be dealing with Psychic types. It's not super weak against them, but it's not equipped to deal with them. You got another Fire type user, and if I remember correctly, who was the fourth one? Ground types. That was it. You have a ground type user too, and this team is not prepared to deal with ground types. Like this, in fact, I'm going to tell you right now, you can't beat Sinnoh with this team either. You just can't do it. Assuming you pass the first gyms in Unova, and assuming you can get Boulder, Rock and Roll, which is native to Unova there, along with Elgium, you're dealing then with your second gyms. One's a poison gym, one's a normal gym. I think you can get past those. You shouldn't have any real problem with the bug gym. Shouldn't have a problem there. Then once you get the electric gym, I don't believe you'll have Ursaluna yet. And even if you did have Ursaluna, here's the problem. Even if you did have Ursaluna, the Emolgas are fast and those aerial aces hit hard. I don't think Ursaluna would be able to stand very tall against them. Now your Gigalith should be able to manage, fortunately. Okay, but I think he can do it, but it would be difficult. The ground-type gym leader, Clay, he's going to be problematic to a certain degree, at least for your two rock-type Pokemon. Or for the rock-type and the fire-type. They're going to be problematic. The Ice-type gym leader shouldn't be any problem. Your Dragon-type, your Flying-type gym leader would be problematic a little bit for at least two of these Mon, your Ursaluna and your Machamp. And then the Dragon-type gym, you just don't have really any Mon that are equipped to handle dragons. That's not to say you couldn't beat them. It's just not going to be easy. And then you're dealing with the Elite Four. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to stop at the Elite Four. You're never going to get to the champion because one of the Elite Four is a Fighting-type gym leader Fighting-type user who's going to immediately, and he has some bulky Mon on that team, who's going to immediately just run through half this team without issue. And one of your biggest hitters is going to go down with Ursaluna. So I don't think you can beat Unova with this team. Magby could take care of the first gym. Second gym, you're going to have a Teddiursa still. And you're going to have a Magmar still. And I'm going to be honest, I think you're just stopgapped right there. Because it doesn't matter. It's a rock-type gym. Both those guys are weak to rock, so you're already kind of SOL. Even if you can get to the third gym, which is a fighting-type gym, you're also SOL, because even if you have Ursaluna, it's still a normal type, and then Flying Press is a normal flying type, so it's dual-type move. It's the only dual-type move that exists. And your Rock'n'Rolla is going to be, or your Boulder or Gigalith, is going to be completely screwed against them as well. So this is another region where this team can't work in the order of the Mon that you're getting them. And Galar, Magby can handle the first gym. Then you're screwed at Nessa. That's just the problem. You're screwed at Nessa because you with just two Mon at that point, you can't beat that gym. You just can't do it. At least not those two Mon anyway, who evolve at such a high level that you wouldn't have them at their evolved states yet. If you miracle managed it, could you get to, say, the next gym, the fire gym, and beat them? Yes. Could you get through to the ghost or fighting gym after that? No. That you're stopgapped again at the fighting gym. So, yeah, no, Galar you can't win in this. You can't win in this game in Galar. So last but not least, what about Paldea? You can definitely get through the bug gym. You can get through the grass gym. At that point, when you get to the electric gym, you now have both Magmar, Gigalith, because at that point it should be evolved. At least I think it should be evolved, or close enough to it. A Gigalith, let's say you have Gigalith, or at least you have a Boulder on your team. You have Ursaluna. Sorry, Ursula. You have Teddiursa. It still wouldn't be fully evolved because they're not in their 30s yet. And so that one would prove tricky. That would prove tricky. But I think it's still possible you could do it. The Boulder's got enough defenses and is not immune, but I think Rock does resist electric, I think. And if not, it still should be able to dish out a lot of damage and even know a ground type move or two. So that should be helpful. But if you were to get past that, could you handle, I believe it is Larry, is he the fifth or the fourth? I can never remember. I think the water gym leader is the fourth official gym leader in terms of the order you're technically supposed to do it. No. What if you were to do Larry instead? Well, Gigalith should be able to do at least a little bit of damage. But yeah, at that point, no. You can't do Paldea either. Because you're already going to be reaching you're already going to have hard enough time with Iona. And that's assuming you can beat her at lower levels. Then you got to deal with the rest of them. And several of them have type advantages. Several of them are just have too many Mon at high enough levels that they'll be able to mess with you. So I don't think you could do Paldea either, unfortunately. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This one went on long. That's what I get for forgetting a part of the video. I could re-record this. I could. I'm not going to. So until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.